What is up, y'all? We are here for episode 7 of Salt Lake City. We are in the islands. I don't forgot what the name of it is. But if you're new here, hit subscribe. Do that real quick. It's free of charge. We're on the road to 15K. Thumbs up the video. Get in the comments. Once you're in the comments, hype the video. Hype the video. It helps me out so much. We got a lot to get into. I'm on Lisa's side. We'll get into it. Heather, the gaslighting was crazy. But we're going to get into it. But let's go. But we start the episode off with like a below deck themed type intro, which I'm assuming that's who the workers are that are being featured in the show this episode. Y'all tell me. I can only assume because it is below deck that was on Bravo too. But they show that it starts off with everybody pretty much arriving to the airport for Heather's trip. And Whitney gets a text from Bronwyn pretty much telling her, like, I'm coming, but I'm not coming with y'all right now. I'm going to take another flight. Whitney's not surprised because of the headlines that are out about Bronwyn. And she was like, I mean, Bronwyn will be damned if she comes or damned if she doesn't. Because regardless, we still going to talk about it. Whether you hear or not, we're going to talk about it. But they arrive 15 hours later to, I'm not even going to try and state the name. I'm just going to spell it for you. Canouan, Kanawan, I think. Here we go. I just tried it. I think I might have said it right. But it's really pretty. It's a really pretty island. The yacht that they're going to be on is huge. Huge. Beautiful yacht. But they greet the captain. Angie, she's spending a lot more time with the workers than the rest of them. And Lisa's shading her, talking about she just needs attention. She just needs attention. But the captain pretty much lets them know what the plan is for the day. He talks about getting them wet. And of course, their mind goes to where? You already know. But Lisa, she's shading Angie again in her confessional stating like this would be nice for Angie because she's usually in an RV. But Angie shades her right back and says she's planning on keeping her distance from Lisa. Or she could stand next to her to make sure that her ankles look smaller. Standing next to her, I said. But they head on the yacht. And they're getting on the yacht. They're getting drinks and shots. Britani is a cat in heat. Like, she's so male-centered. Like, shit. Any of them dudes that was on there, she was giving them attention. So she's like excited about it. But one of the workers ends up asking Whitney if it's just the 6 of them. And Whitney's like, no, Bronwyn's coming too. But if she arrives, how is she going to get to us? Because they're on a yacht and they're going to be already out there. And the worker was like, I mean, I'll organize it. We'll get her to y'all. But she then takes them up on a tour of the yacht so they can see everything that the yacht has. And they start checking into their rooms. Brittany and Bronwyn, they're sharing rooms. Angie was with Mary. Lisa and Meredith were together. Whitney and Heather were together. So those were the room assignments. But Brittany's like, I'm sharing a room with Bronwyn. I said, yeah, that's interesting. But Heather then says that she might not even show up. Like, don't even worry about it. But she shows up. But they head to the top of the yacht. Heather's telling the girls that her and Whitney are friends with Captain Jason. And Lisa's like, where is he at? And they're like driving the boat. Like, what you mean? But Brittany, she's still talking about being a sucker for the leader of the ship. Basically telling them, like, I want to get to know him. When are you not wanting to get to know another man? Like, it's crazy. But Heather's like, so are you into him? And she was like, I mean, he's not, if he's into me, like, I'm into him. I'm like, worry about your daughter. Like, you just had a whole conversation with your daughter about the fact that you are male-centric. Yes, she was talking about Jared, but the whole gist of it is that you are worried about men instead of worried about them. You can't spend any time thinking about your kids. And it's like Brittany is one of them people that cannot be single. Like, and those type of people is crazy. But Lisa ends up asking, like, what about Jared? Like, you sitting here talking like you don't have Jared. Brittany claims that they're on a 30-day break, which hasn't even started yet because he was helping her get ready for the trip. And I'm like, this is crazy. But they sit down and Meredith is like, we don't want to hear a word about Jared. We don't want to hear his name this entire trip. Me either. But Whitney states, if you do mention it, we're going to splash you with water. So she ends up stating it, and Meredith does exactly that. But the worker comes out and tells him that Bronwyn is on her way. So she's already on the way. So she's arriving on the boat. And Heather has the rest of the girls come down and greet her to make her feel welcome, even though they know what is really being said about her in the press. And they already know that she probably is sitting there thinking that they probably already been talking about it. But Bronwyn is processing how the girls probably have already discussed the allegations, which they haven't really, at least from what we've seen. But she also talks about, like, pretty much thinking about what Tide had said to her about pretty much you getting on there and going on this trip, you likely gonna get in some drama, which we're gonna get to Bronwyn later on. But she's stating that she wants to have fun and she's hoping that they feel that same way. Like, they just want to have fun. I said, stop worrying about, no, wait. She said that she is hoping that they still feel the same way they do about her. Basically, not letting those allegations cloud their judgment on who she is as a person. And I said, you are so worried about what other people think about you. And it's like, we know why she is that way because of her mom, but that doesn't excuse it. You're a grown woman. You don't have to sit and think about and value what other people think about you all the time. Like, that is aggravating to watch. But Heather tells Lisa, your best friend is here. And Lisa's like, I mean, she's always wearing a costume. And she comes in there with this like yellow flotation device type outfit, which is the truth. And Lisa's like, I mean, I've seen it on Instagram. And they showed 3 times where she's posted that same fit on Instagram. But Lisa then tells Angie and Brittany that she feels like Bronwyn has a lot on her plate, especially after everything that's really been going on. And Angie ends up asking, why do you say that? And Lisa's like, I feel like she's trying to retaliate against me. In this moment, I'm like, Lisa, this don't look good considering what's coming out. But I'll elaborate on why I stated what I stated earlier. But Lisa says in her confessional, we're fine. Like, me and Bronwyn are fine. I don't want to throw around karma as the reason as to why these allegations are coming out. But why would Bronwyn come so hard for me when she got all this shit in her closet? And I said, that's exactly what I said last week on here. Like, if you know that your closet is not clean, why are you sitting here like trying to get on somebody else about it? Like, you won't get your shit pulled up. Like, that's crazy. But Angie ends up asking that. Bronwyn comes in and Lisa shades her outfit again, stating that you coming in with your own life raft. But Brittany tells Bronwyn that they're going to be sharing beds. And Bronwyn's like, well, I'm not Jared, a.k.a. leave me alone. But Whitney and Meredith, they're like, did I hear Jared? Because you already know they ready to throw that water. And Brittany's like, I ain't saying. She still got drenched. But they all head on off to go get changed for the rest of the day. So we see Brittany in the room with Bronwyn, and she pulls out the stuffed animal that has an audio recording of Jared telling her, good night, baby, I love you. Brittany is aggravating. Like, Brittany is, it's not even entertaining to me anymore. Because it's like, you're so hell-bent on wanting to be with a man. And not only that, you prioritize them more than you do your own kids. Like, she talks more about these men than she does her own kids, which is crazy to me. But Bronwyn said she's going to throw that shit overboard. I wish you would, please. But Lisa and Meredith, they're in their room. And Meredith is stating, like, Bronwyn showed up fully inflatable. And Lisa's like, yeah, it's on brand for her. I wouldn't expect anything less. I wouldn't either. But Meredith then asks if she thinks that Bronwyn will bring up her shit that's going on with her in the press. And Lisa's like, I mean, she might bring up an iteration of the truth. Like, she ain't gonna tell you all of it, but she might allude to it. But Meredith is like, I mean, all I really want is an honest answer. But Bronwyn in there with Brittany's asking her where she's been, why she didn't come with them. And Bronwyn was like, I mean, I almost didn't come. Brittany's like, why? And Bronwyn says, I mean, somebody in this group is probably planting stories about me. And I said, did you forget that you're on TV, Bronwyn? Like, you literally have already done a whole full season of the show. Fans can do that too. Fans do that shit all the time. But Brittany says from this group, and she was like, yeah, of course, I do. And I'm like, if you don't know that, don't start that shit. Like, it's not fun when the rabbit has the gun now. Like, you literally be trying to do that shit with Lisa, and you started this shit all season. You opened the season talking about Lisa's business, and now it's being brought back to you. It's just like, please. But Brittany ends up asking if she did the grand theft that was being accused of her. Bronwyn denies it, but her body language told me she might have did it, allegedly. But Bronwyn states that the story had changed 18 times. And I'm like, but you made it seem like you had a part in what was being stated about you last week. But Brittany says that she's wondering if it's true because, I mean, like, public record, like, we can look that shit up. And Braun was like, no, it's not. It's not. It bothers me that you're talking about it behind my back because not one person called and asked if I was okay. I said, yeah, when Lisa had these allegations going on, y'all had no problem yapping about it behind her back. And I guarantee you, none of y'all called her and asked her about it. So it's like, please, Bronwyn. But Bronwyn then says that there were mistakes that she had made in the past, but they were true a long time ago. I said, so what's the truth? You stated that it wasn't true, but then you said it was. But she then says that there's another case that they're trying to state was current now, which was 10 plus years ago, is sealed. And the only thing they can find is essentially a reference to what had happened. So Bronwyn then states, too, that it's embarrassing and it's difficult because the stress that it puts on my family mostly Todd. That's why you can tell. That's how you can tell she's most stressed out because she knows Todd is not happy about it. And she knows that that could reflect poorly on him. And that's, you already know, like she looks to Todd for approval. So if he's getting all of that, questions about her, she knows it's not going to be good. But Bronwyn then tells Brittany how upsetting it is for Todd because he doesn't deal with rumors with his job and all of that stuff. So the below deck worker comes in talking about like, no, she comes in finding a thick ass cucumber in somebody's bag. I forget which room it was but she found it. They focused on it later on. But the producers end up asking the cast in their confessionals who brought it, and nobody's copping to it. But Angie, she's seasick. She been throwing up, and she gonna continue to throw up the rest of this episode. So everybody's now dressed up. They're ready to go eat lunch. Bronwyn and Mary and Angie, they arrived last. But Angie's got a bucket, and she's upstairs making sure she don't throw up. And she's sitting away from them. But Heather, she then states that this is our first meal on the yacht together. Bronwyn's here finally. And Whitney ends up asking if everything's okay. It's a little bit of silence before Bronwyn responds. She states that stuff went on that upset Todd. People trying to dig in her past, and it's not true. And she states that Todd felt like it would be better for her to stay at home instead of being out here with them. Meredith then asks and says, no, she then states that she didn't look into specifics, but she saw some of the things that had happened supposedly 20 years back. Heather states that she saw some shit that happened in 2021. Bronwyn states that that's not real. Meredith then says, I think it's in your best interest to clear that shit up because it looks a lot worse than what you're claiming it is. So Bronwyn states that she had gotten kicked out of BYU when she was 19 years old when she had her daughter. It was 20 years ago. She didn't pay her rent the last month. That's what the issue was then. Mary was like, so how is that even coming up in the press now? Heather starts talking about those 2021 charges, and Bronwyn was like, there's no charges from 4 years ago. They're trying to state that there was something going on at her job that Bronwyn had cooperated with the authorities about, but they didn't charge her. That's what she's stating. She states years later charges came up, but they weren't against her, but those charges went through, but they're sealed and she can't discuss it. I said, okay. But Heather then asked, why would the charges be filed on your record, though? That's a good question. But Bronwyn then says there are no charges, mugshots, or police. Like, there's no record at all. We don't have it. So she's denying it. Heather then asks, so why is it so upsetting then? Lisa cosigns. I'm like, yeah, why is it upsetting? Because if it's not true, why are you worried about it? But Bronwyn then says, she says that both of us felt like the nasty things that were coming out in the press started once I started hanging out with this group, and I feel like somebody in this group was doing it. I said, Bronwyn, you're on TV. Fans can do that shit too. Like, come on. But Lisa states nobody in this group would. I'm like, Lisa, don't start. Because Lisa ain't doing nothing but making herself look like she's guilty. But Whitney almost drops her utensils as Lisa's interjecting. And she then states that she then asks, how are they getting all this detailed information? Bronwyn agrees. Like, she's like, I think it's weird. Lisa says, I don't think that it's weird that Bronwyn dug up shit on me, and she feels like Bronwyn retaliated. So Bronwyn then says, that's what I'm worried about, though. Lisa says, no. And the way Lisa is like responding to this, her answers, it makes her look guilty, even though I don't believe that Lisa did it. Even at the end of the episode, I still don't believe that she did it. I don't. But Lisa then states, don't spend this shit on me because that'll piss me off. Mary then asks Bronwyn if she thinks that Lisa did it. She says, I don't know, but it bothered me if somebody in this group did. Bronwyn, stop lying. It's crazy to me how you so clearly think that Lisa did it. Why don't you state it? Like, and we're going to get to that later on because it's hypocrisy, a lot of hypocrisy in this group. But Heather then asks if she thinks, who she thinks it came from. And Bronwyn beats around the bush, but claims after Amy's party, it intensified, aka she's insinuating Lisa because who was she arguing with at that party? It was Lisa. But Lisa states that sounds like an accusation. Like, hello? And Lisa then asks, like, who was spreading the stuff then at that point? But she gets flustered, and you can tell she's getting flustered, talking about I'm getting hot or whatnot. But Angie comes down. They go and get in the water. So everybody's in the water and whatnot. Heather and Brittany, they're talking about Captain Jason. And Heather slips up and states that they had history, and they might have fucked around. And Brittany caught it and is like, what you mean? Like, y'all was doing something. Heather's sitting there trying to play it off like she didn't stay there. I'm like, Heather probably did mess around with him. But Brittany is talking about how she's jealous. But Angie's out there in the water throwing up. I said, Angie, you seasick and you gonna get in the water? But she's over there doing that. And she cracked me up in her confessionals. She says, this is not fun because the worst part is I feel ugly and I can't even suck in because I'm sitting here throwing up. But Lisa says Angie's so full of shit that she's making her own self sick. But Brittany's up there flirting with the captain. Bronwyn and Whitney, they're in Bronwyn's room now, and they're discussing everything. So Bronwyn shows her Brittany's toy with Jared's audio, and Whitney's like, is that Jared on the audio? But Brittany's down there flirting with the bartender, and they start talking about the lunch and whatnot. So Bronwyn, she starts stating that she wasn't even accusing Lisa of leaking the shit to the press. You were. you didn't actively do that, but you were basically insinuating that. Let's keep it real. But Whitney states because it was her. That's literally what it is. But Bronwyn then states and starts talking about how Lisa was breaking that Alibaba stuff about Whitney last season. And I'm like, so you were talking about Lisa. So at this point, just own up to it, but you were too scared to state it. But Bronwyn, she then continues and states that the person that was putting it on Twitter started using the name Conwyn. And she states that this is what Lisa called me at Amy's, and it wasn't even in the press at that time. That is a lie. And the producers proved that that's not what was said. At Amy, she called you Fraudwyn. Fraudwyn and Conwyn, two different things. Yes, they can mean the same thing, but you stating that that's what she called you and that's what was stated in the on Twitter, it negates what you're stating. But Whitney states, she said that? And Bronwyn was like, yeah. But Bronwyn then says the next day it was on Twitter, and she then states too that if she thinks Lisa could do this to her, that's the end. I said, so you already think that, and you should already think that that should be the end, but we already know you want to be Lisa's friend. Lisa could do the worst to Bronwyn, and she still would want to be her friend. But Lisa's now talking to John, and Whitney has Heather in her room, and they're talking about Lisa's track record with like releasing shit and like targeting people. So Heather then states that I agree, I think she leaked it. Heather then states Lisa's smarter and darker than anybody else that she can imagine, and she thinks that Lisa is keeping score and is looking up shit on them, and she's pissed off about Bronwyn's attitude and bullshit and made sure to pull up her history and make sure that everybody else knows it. That's some shit that you would do, Heather. The main one that's always pointing fingers is probably the one that's doing it. Look, like, let's keep it real. I wouldn't put it past Heather because we all know Heather don't really fuck with Bronwyn like that. But Whitney then asks, what should we do? Heather says, go get Meredith. So she goes and gets Meredith. But Heather's in her confessional stating that Meredith is Lisa's closest friend on the boat. And she wants to know if she feels the same, but she doesn't want to hurt, talking about Heather, I don't want to hurt my friendship with Lisa. And I feel like with Meredith, it'll go over better for me. I said, so you can turn Lisa against Meredith so that you can then get everybody to fuck with Lisa at this point. And it's like, you still would want Lisa to fuck with you. Like, after watching this, you think Lisa's still gonna want to be your friend. Like, I don't get Heather. Heather's a weirdo. But Meredith, she comes in and Whitney runs her through what they've been talking about. And Meredith is like, I mean, if Lisa is feeding this information, it is a problem. Obviously, if that is true, it would be a problem. But she said she may not have even done anything. She may not have. It's like these women want everybody to believe the worst in Lisa. And it's like, I'm not stating that Lisa is completely innocent, but like, y'all don't even have hardcore proof to prove that she's the one doing this. So for y'all to be sitting here acting like it's a fact, that's the craziest part about it. But Meredith is like, I mean, I can't speak to it pertaining to Bronwyn's issue because at this point, I don't know. Like, at this point, I don't know. But Heather's sitting there talking about something. You don't think that the Conwyn fraud part, that part, you don't feel like that was coming from Lisa? Because, like, it was at the highest point of her anger. I'm like, are you framing Lisa? Like, why are you, like, what? But Meredith states in her confessionals, they're so worried about who planted it, but are not worried about the fact that Bronwyn might have done what is being accused of her. I said, hello? Like, what? But Angie, she's still sick, and Mary has the crew coming in to get a doctor, which wasn't a doctor, but Jason comes in there, the Captain Jason. He comes in there and ices Angie up to kind of cool her down. But the rest of the episode is at dinner. So they head on out to dinner, and Heather's telling them we got 6 place settings. It's 8 of us here, but as you know, Angie's sick. Mary's going to stay down there with her and eat her food. So at dinner, they're eating. Actually, before we get to it, I got to talk about Mary. Mary came out the bathroom and told me, I feel fresh. I can only assume she took a shit. And she told me, where's the rest of my food? Because her food was sitting there on the bed. And that's why I don't eat fancy food. I can't stand fancy food because it's not enough. It's small portions. And you could tell Mary was like, where's the rest of the food at? Like, this is a snack. But up there at dinner, they're eating, and Heather ends up stating that she's sad because they're missing Angie and Mary's commentary. Brittany says, I don't miss Mary's commentary. I said, because what she says about you is the truth. But Heather then states, we have a rule. You can only talk shit if the person's in front of you. I said, well, you break every rule. Like, you've broken that rule so many times, it makes no sense. You sit around and talk shit about people all the time when they're not in your face. But Brittany then states, I say shit to people's face. Bronwyn says, what about the shit that's being said to these people, that's being said not to these people's faces that are sitting here at the table that you're mad at? I said, Bronwyn, the same question could be asked to you. Like, you was the same one talking about Lisa instead of addressing that shit with her. Like, it's rich coming from you. But they show a flashback of Brittany in the shop with Bronwyn the week before, stating that, like, Lisa's trying to be, trying so hard to big sister her. Bronwyn baits her into talking about Meredith too. But Brittany was like, I mean, I've yet to see Meredith without having a seizure of some sort. And I feel like she goes from 0 to 100 real quick in like 2.5 seconds. We know how dramatic Meredith is, but I'm like, here we go. But Bronwyn leans over to Lisa. She got all these issues with Lisa, but you can tell she's trying her hardest just to like, I'm proving myself to you. She did it to Lisa. She said, you be trying to big sister her. She don't want your advice. Then she does the same thing to Meredith. She says, you pretend to have seizures. I said, you want them to like you so bad. And it's like, it's cringeworthy to watch. She is so desperate for somebody to approve her. It's sad. I blame her parents, but like, you a grown woman. There's no excuse for this anymore. As a kid, I can see somebody doing that. But like, you as a grown woman fiending for public approval from people that you want to be friends. Like, I don't get that. But Meredith states, because you know she pissed, I don't pretend to have seizures. I've never had them in my life. That's a horrible thing to say about somebody. People that have seizures they're serious. Like, these are serious shits. This is serious shit that happens, and one of my children has had that. Brittany says, well, my child, you don't even know your child. Like, you can't even state none of that. I said, that's crazy. Save it. But Meredith says what I said. I don't care. Because we don't care, because you don't care about your kids. So don't even talk about your child. Like, you don't even care. But Brittany says, see, this is what I'm talking about. This is the seizure that I'm talking about. Meredith gets up and pours water on her. I think she might have thought she said Jared was seizure, but regardless, the water pour was needed because Brittany poured it back. And Brittany barely got hit with the water, and Meredith didn't get hit with the water. But guess who got hit with the water? Bronwyn. She started the shit, and she got drenched, and that's what she did. But Brittany states that nobody cares about Meredith treat me like shit. I said, but you started with her. Bronwyn started with her, but you did it. Like, let's keep it real. But Brittany states that she thinks that Meredith dislikes her so much because she's the only one not scared of her. Bronwyn, trying her best to prove herself to Meredith, starts throwing Brittany under the bus. And Angie and Meredith, they're in their room and they can hear it. They can hear it. Meredith's in there tearing that food up, though. Mary is. I said Meredith. Mary is in there tearing up that food. But Meredith and Brittany, they still going back and forth. Heather then states, everybody at this table needs to own up to things and move on. And this isn't a pile-on. I said, at this point, you the one that need to own up to some shit. You right. Everybody at this table does. And you're one of those people. You the main one. Own up to the shit that you've been doing behind Lisa's back. But Meredith states there's no pile-up. Heather says, we're all going to talk, and what else needs to be owned up to at this table will be owned up to. So Whitney states that she thinks that Heather and Meredith need to own up to something. I said, Heather does. She does. Meredith ain't do nothing. Y'all roped Meredith into that. Y'all the one, Whitney, you need to own up to it too. But Meredith is like, what? Like, what do I need to own up for? Whitney says the conversation that we had on the bed. I said, nah, you and Heather need to own up to that, because y'all the ones that was talking about it and then trying to use Meredith as a scapegoat. But Meredith states, yes, y'all should talk about it. But Whitney says, you were a part of it. She said, I mean, yeah, I was, but I was waiting on Meredith to state, I came in because y'all pulled me in. Y'all were the one forcing that shit on me. But Heather's in her confessionals talking about she's disappointed in Meredith because she thought that she was going to be able to use her to get with Lisa. I said, you a punk. Like, you trying to use Meredith to be a smokescreen for you. If you have an issue with Lisa, address the shit. You don't want to do it without having a smokescreen. But Heather sits at that table and states, I don't care about anybody. Anybody outside of the people at this table. I said, Angie and Mary, catch it. Because at that reunion, I want y'all to press her about this. But she states that she wants to be real. I said, okay, let's see if you can finally do it. But she then tells Lisa that she feels like Lisa is the source of all of the dirt. Lisa's thrown off. She's like, why are y'all even questioning me? Whitney says, because we feel you always know the information before. I said, Whitney, you the main one that every time something is being dug up, you the main one in the confessionals with all the facts. All of it. You be doing the same thing. Like, let's keep it real. But Whitney states that. Lisa says, I mean, you were questioning me. Even she was talking about Bronwyn. Bronwyn was, she just wasn't doing it directly. But Lisa ain't stupid. But Meredith says they question how you're upset. And that's pretty much what they were questioning. They were questioning how you were upset and how whenever you are upset, something comes up in the press. And that was the comment that was made. Lisa's like, oh my gosh, that's so dumb. And I hope you had my back talking to Meredith. I hope you had my back on that. Meredith says, I mean, I hope that it wasn't true. Lisa says it's not fucking true. But Lisa then says, people tell me stuff, and how am I supposed to be the one responsible for it? Whitney says, because you know everything. You do too, Whitney. So what's the difference? What is the difference? But Meredith then states, They think that you're the one feeding the shit to the blogs. Lisa's in her confessional stating that she never dug dirt up on any of them bitches, and she's so sick of being accused of it. Do I think Lisa's never dug up dirt on them? No, I definitely think she has. But in this instance, I don't think Lisa did it. Call me crazy, but I don't. But Angie and Mary, they can hear it. They still hearing it. Lisa's down there crying now, screaming and crying at the table, talking about she can't take it anymore, and tells them to shut the fuck up talking about her. Because at this point, it does seem like they're just literally trying to take her down for real, for real. But Whitney gets up to try and go over to Lisa, and I'm like, and Lisa said exactly what I would have said. Don't come near me. Why are you even going to come near me when you know you the reason why I'm acting like this right now? But Whitney says she's coming. Lisa gets up and goes over there to Heather. And Whitney comes back around and tells Lisa, you're not a punching bag. You're not a Please be for real. Y'all are literally using her as a punching bag. Like, what? But Lisa then tells her to sit down. You sit down. And Lisa's telling Heather, like, you're not a friend. And she's not. She's not. She's not your friend. That's for sure. But Heather said, sit down and talk to me. I said, for what? For what? But Mary's down there getting a cheesecake delivered. And Lisa's sitting up there yelling, fuck you to Heather. And she says, y'all are lucky that I don't talk to Andy. Y'all are lucky that I sit here and talk to y'all. Like, y'all better be thanking y'all's lucky stars. And I'm still sitting here talking to y'all to this day. They would cry if she didn't. Y'all already know that. But Lisa is now crying, telling Meredith, you didn't defend me. Like, if you didn't defend me, I'm going to really lose it. But Heather then states, don't be afraid of her. Don't be afraid of her talking to Meredith. She's throwing her weight around. She's just throwing her weight around. Heather's swearing up and down she been a good friend to Lisa. I said, please, how? How? Waiters are now bringing the food out to them, and they still arguing. But Heather's telling Lisa to own up to it. And it's like, if she didn't do it, why does she have to own up to it? Like, why? But Lisa says, fuck that. Don't you ever put that shit on me again. She then states, too, she's not admitting to something that she didn't do. If she didn't do it, I wouldn't admit to it either. But Heather states, you're a defensive fucking bitch. I said, some friends you are, calling your friend out of her name. She ain't called you out your name yet. She didn't do it this entire episode. Lisa's like, oh. So Heather then states that you know all the dirt, say it to her face. And I'll say it, grand larceny, identity theft. I said, so you know it. You know it. So why are you putting it on Lisa? Why are you putting that on her? But Lisa says it's all over the internet. I don't know what you want me to do. And Heather then states, say it to her. You just did. You just did. It's all over the internet. What's the difference? Like, if Lisa states, okay, these are the accusations that are being pinned against you. What is that proving? Like, the same information that y'all already know. But the captain comes in on Mary and Angie, and they trying to figure out what they've been up there arguing about. So Heather's now still telling Lisa that I think that you're the source. And Lisa's like, I mean, then I can't be your friend then. If you think that way of me, then I can't be your friend. So Heather's sitting there saying, are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? If you believe that she's the source of spreading information about y'all as a group, why would you want to be friends with her? You saw what you did with Monica. You cut her off for literally talking about y'all on the blogs, yet you still you think Lisa would want to be friends with you? Like, what? I don't get Heather. But Lisa then states, I got accused of a lot of things last year that I didn't do. I defended you, talking about Whitney, and I felt bad for her. Lisa then states that she's not the one leaking the shit. And she was like, I love how this shit just got spun on me. But Heather then states, you're the one spinning it, you moron. Again, calling her out of her name. That's not a friend. That is not a friend. But Lisa then states that she can't believe that Heather would even state that. And Heather's swearing up and down that she hasn't done anything. Hasn't done anything to Lisa. Tells Lisa that, I mean, if you feel that way and you can't listen to me talking to you, you can get off my yacht. I said. And the way she was screaming, that Ozempic, she went overboard. Because her face is like this and them big fat ass teeth that she got in her mouth. She looked crazy. She looked crazy. Heather's face looked like it couldn't even move. But Lisa gets up and she's crying. And she's stating that she's going to leave. And Heather's claiming that she's been a good friend to her. You're not. But Lisa then starts talking about, like, you telling me to admit to something that I didn't do. That's not a good friend. But Whitney then states that you've done stuff to us. And Lisa gets right up in her face. I mean, don't you say that shit again. You can tell Lisa wanted to hit her. The way she was gritting her teeth. That's how you knew she wanted to hit her. But Heather is now trying to restrain Lisa, who is crashing out at this point because of Heather. But Lisa calls John and she's crying and Heather's sitting there following her around like a fucking weirdo. You're a gaslighter. You started this shit with her. Leave her alone. Leave her alone. Stop following her around when you're the reason why she's crying. But Heather's following her around. Lisa says, get the fuck away from me, as she should have. And Heather's sitting there talking about how she's not going to leave her. I'm not going to leave her. So you just going to sit here and harass her. Like, that's weird. But Lisa's telling John what Heather has said, and Heather is gaslighting her, telling her, you're creating this out of your own mind. Are you fucking insane? Everything you just did is the reason why she's tripping out right now. But Lisa says that she thought that they had come so far, but for Heather to do this to her is ridiculous, and it's making her reassess everything with their friendship, as you should. But Heather goes to Angie and Mary, trying to play the victim, sitting there crying, talking about Lisa's mad at me because I told Lisa that she's the source of everything, and they sitting there telling her that she's a real friend. No, she's not. No, she is not. Like, that's not a good friend. If you don't know for a fact that your friend did something that you're accusing them of, and you sit there and accuse them of that, that's not a good friend. If you don't have proof, you shouldn't be accusing her. But Lisa, she's out by the water now. Brittany comes over trying to comfort her. Lisa don't want to be bothered. She don't. But Brittany's not getting a hint, but she eventually gets up and she goes and tells Heather, I found where Lisa's at, and here come Heather. I want to go talk to her. Leave her the fuck alone. You're the reason why she's like that. Heather's annoying. She's annoying. But if y'all got this far, give me that. Get in the comments, type the video, share the video, subscribe if you're new, and I will see y'all next week. Peace.